this thing updated daily so these collectors can go out there and collect payments and things and know what's happening within our business. And also with the user-friendly interface, we've been able to have a lot of the users have adopted the system very rapidly, and they've had more of a pull versus a push. Most of my technology that we've deployed, we've forced people to do it, bribe them with free lunches of pizzas and things to try to get engaged with the system. But overall in Corda, we didn't need to do any of those activities. People wanted more in Corda. So.
Yeah, and I'll answer that question.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Chris.
I'll answer that question
from
a Transcendia perspective. I mean, Transcendia customers of data were used to just getting data extracts fed to them, and whatever they did in Excel and off board was what they got. So I'm changing that culture here for the first time in handing them analytics that actually help them not have to do the preparatory work of their data, but just simply glean from the analytics what they really need to run their business. So I've created quite a hunger with the business here, and enjoying the sheer request volume coming in. That snowball started to roll down the hill on its own. So only more to come.
Absolutely.
I think really from my
Raj, Adam.
I think really from my perspective that it's creating this wealth and depth of information that we've never had access to before, and unlocking that capability. But it's more than just being able to serve up drill through capability. It's also being able to alert specifically what might not be performing according to expectations, and being able to create an instant interaction with that. It's not. The intention is that it's probably a first step for somebody to go look at as an analyst. You know, these are the things that you want to pay attention to probably first before you start to dig deeper into additional performance.
And Raj, I see you. I think you might be on mute here, Raj. Just heads up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, too many buttons.
There you go.
Yeah, so if the question is, where we've been most successful in analytics, and I think it's probably where the business customer has been most hungry for data and for being able to transform the data into something they can use to make decisions. And it happens to be in our a strategy that we've started before I got here around a partnership with a retailer and a credit card partnership. And just as all this craziness was hitting with the pandemic and all the economic impacts that went into that, and so there's all kinds of questions about fraud, about credit loss, about activity rates, all in an environment that was just new. What made it more challenging was that while we are a Fiserv shop, which if you're in an FI, a financial institution, you know what that means. You get a lot of integrated stuff. The credit card stuff is totally separate. So all the data has to be pulled in from different sources. And trying to do that kind of the traditional way, I think would not be able to help them answer the questions that they've been able to answer and improve things and respond to a very dynamic business environment, economic environment. So we're in the middle of that still. We haven't figured it all out, but in Corda, and I think we'll talk later in other sessions about how we've integrated that with some other products. It's really been key to helping us be responsive to this very important problem.
Great. Yeah, no, I appreciate that insight. And I think each one of you kind of touched a little bit on a question I was going to ask next, but it sounds like it's definitely happening in your organizations around kind of driving employee engagement and analytics being used a little bit as a springboard to kind of help with that. Maybe the other side of that equation is, what have been some of the biggest factors from your perspective that have prevented success or adoption rate with either current or prior analytics initiatives at your organization? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I could speak to Transcendia just because they've got basically a legacy homegrown ERP system that 2 of their plants are on, and then everybody else is on MoveX, but we've also got some acquisition sources that aren't even on any ERP systems that we're having to integrate. So just the disparity of data and where it lives and how it doesn't scope is the challenge for us.
I think from our perspective, it's been the most difficult thing is getting our arms around, we don't know what we don't know when it comes to the information, right? So it's very difficult to articulate the questions that we aren't asking of our information. And that tends to, when you increase this depth and this wealth of information, that's much deeper than the questions that you can answer today. It's difficult to create adoption for the rest of the organization to embrace answering these questions that they might not have foundational knowledge.
I can jump in there. The areas where I think we've had the most trouble with adoption have been areas where there isn't a driving need. It's not all that different than what Adam is saying, I think, which is here's a bunch of information. If you don't, have a driving need to explore and get to some answers, then you're just not going to leverage that fully. I think that is one key issue. Another is that even with Encorda's kind of drag and drop tools, you have to invest some time in understanding the data that's available. And it goes again to having a real business need that forces you to spend a little energy on that. So focusing, what's been successful for us is focusing on business domains that have the need. That's what I would advise anyone doing, rolling out a product like that. Where do people have a hunger? And they're going to adopt best.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, and Raj, do you think it's important? Sorry, Chris, just one quick follow-up, and I'll let you step in. Was curious, Raj, from your perspective. I mean, how critical is it to identify those key subject matter experts, early and often before a project starts to make sure they have bandwidth and they're engaged early and often? I mean, has that been your experience?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll give you a good example. So I mentioned this partnership with a retailer, and it's a credit card partnership, and certainly we've had credit cards for forever as an institution, but a retail credit card or a co-brand card, brand new. And a year or so or longer into the relationship, we got some really good advice from someone that we hope will be joining the team soon, and it's amazing how that subject matter expertise shapes what you do, how you pull the data in, how you join it together, what problems you're trying to solve, knowing that this is a problem at all, or that no, that's just normal. It's been huge to have advice from people like that. Yeah, very important.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's been our experience as well. And Chris, sorry to interrupt you there. Go ahead.
No, thanks. With us, the biggest thing was we all have one Oracle EBS ERP that we're pulling our data from, and in some ways it's a great benefit to us. But the thing is that with a global organization, we end up finding out as we're getting into the Encorda tool and trying to deploy it across the other regions is that each region sometimes books things just a little bit differently. And when you have that ability to see all of that great detail of the data, you start to see that there's some inconsistencies with how things are. And I think some local teams have used other access databases and things to kind of not put some of the best practices into the ERP system of having certain breakouts of data and everything else. And you're starting to kind of expose that, and it's in some ways it's great that you have Encorda to be able to pull in those items, but you're presenting these global information, and the leadership team expects like, oh, we're on one Oracle ERP, so it's like should be easy. I should be able to run these reports as like just click and there it is, but not realizing that there's a little bit of a scrub process, and there's a little bit of a localization that has taken place because there wasn't global controls of how everybody's booking everything the same. So that's the kind of the one issue that we've kind of seen as we've deployed this globally.
Yeah, even if the technical challenge of pulling the data together is made easier, there's, Encorda can't solve your source data issue for you. You still have to do the work, put those things together. It's definitely seen that.
Absolutely. And we do have I just want to take a quick minute here, a fly-in guest here, so to speak. So Matt, thanks for joining. Sorry about the technical difficulties on our end there. Did want to give you a quick moment though to just introduce yourself here to the forum. And again, really appreciate you here joining today.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Matt Hancher, I'm IT Director for Now Health Group. And just one thing to add to the end of that, when we were looking at our BI reporting solutions, one of the things our CEO asked for was a way, the solution would have to summarize the data at a detailed level. Whatever insight, report, dashboard, whatever he was looking at any given time, he would want to see the detail. That's what he wanted to see. And Encorda gives us the ability to do that. So we build everything from the ground up on the data with the detail, so we can look at that at any given time, which is great.
Absolutely. I think that's great context to have. So I know, a lot of you guys, from the seats that you sit in, with your organization, definitely having heavy decision makers on, the technologies that you're selecting and a part of that process. Can you walk me through a little bit of some of the key factors and the biggest things you look for when evaluating a new software vendor?
I'll jump in real quick. I can tell you the first thing we do is we don't want them to be like Oracle, that's for sure. But no, really for me, it's a partnership. And that was one of the powerful things with Encorda was the collaboration and the partnership and the access to your teams and to support. And as we built this out and continue to, having that level of access as a mid-sized organization for us has been great.
Sure.
I think from our perspective, it's really a focus on. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think from our perspective, it's really a focus on agility. I think over the course of this, through the pandemic, we've gone through at least 10 different operating models, right? And I think if you looked at the historical BI approach, the lack of flexibility and agility of those solutions would have been significant barriers to being able to get to an analytical outcome. And so I think really our biggest focus is that ability to be able to quickly render, see if the information meets the needs, quickly spin up solutions that help answer the questions that are being asked. Because right now the timing is so critical.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Anyone else have anything to add to kind of the vendor selection process? Okay. Maybe another question for the group here then, obviously you're all heavily involved in analytics solutioning at your organizations, but is there anything you wish your organization was doing a little bit more of today that you'd like to see more of that, driving into 2021?
I think there's probably a cultural change. I mean, every organization is different, right? But having a tool that enables someone to dig around and swim in and learn from lots of data is great. But there is an expectation change that needs to go along with that, kind of permeate the organization, driving some interest into the tool. A tool alone is not enough, right? You have to have some passion around trying to find out something new. And I think that's something that we're just beginning to do. It does take some effort to learn something new, a tool, and then understand the data, that sort of thing. So there's right now at this organization at least, the use of our tool, the use of Encorda and the associated ecosystem is really focused on this team, one team. But it's very possible for teams all over the organization that really can be or should be, I'd say, data hungry to self-serve. Encorda's put a lot of effort into making a kind of drag and drop interface. There are other tools as well that kind of enable that that we're using. So I think that's something I long for, and I think we'll get to over time.
Love that, the culture shift. I think that's important, right? Kind of the concept of people, process, and technology coming together as one.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on some of those categories there?
No, I'll just say I agree with all of that that Raj just said. In Transcendia, unfortunately, IT's not been a very good help to the business for the longest time. We've been more of a roadblock than anything. And so I'm trying to shift culture there. You know, the various business entities have gone out and done what they need to do, whether that's go after a free license of Power BI and just get their own data and do what they do. I've had some success in the fact that we do have an enterprise product that's already stood up in the Cognos BI platform to win some Power BI users over to the light side, I guess. But you know, it's a culture shift for sure.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiment as everybody else. It's working within the office of the CFO. The big thing that's always tough is that you have accountants and finance people that they're more comfortable with slide rules and spreadsheets versus like technology and any kind of technology putting into a brand new consolidation system or anything. It's hard because it's hard to pry away those two tools there, the tried and true thing that has got them through their career for the past so many years, and trying to evolve into advanced analytic thinking and being able to say, I can actually go and double click in these spreadsheets. And I think some of the things that we've put together with them has helped to build the trust in them because they are able to see on some of these insights we put into Incorta is we have the detailed data table at the bottom of our dashboard, but at the top you have a summary, and you can take a look at the bottom and it totals the same as the top. And financing and accounting people love to see numbers tie. So having that is a nice warm fuzzy for them. And the big thing is hopefully getting to a point where we can get them away from the slide rules and spreadsheets into modern technology to be able to help them do things more efficiently. But it's a tough cultural change.
Yeah, I think candidly, Chris, that's the same thing that kind of keeps me up at night from a 2021 perspective is how do you turn a organization that has been really good at reporting into an analytics driven culture, right? And is there a talent gap that you have within your finance organization because you've been positioned at being a really good reporter, a really good reporting organization versus being a really good analytics and business decision partner is really what keeps me up at night.
I do have like one great example of how that actually worked well, but it's so focused on somebody. It has been focused on somebody on their own, just having this interest. He was in the finance organization, in the CFO's organization, Chris, and he had wanted to do some forecasting on really good allocation of cash to ATMs. And so he whipped out Python and then created a machine learning model on his own on his desktop. And then he saw Incorta and was like, wow, look what I can do with this. If I can have access to all the same data, I can get into those Parquet files directly and yank them over into my Jupyter lab thing, and off I go. Finding those people, I haven't found a lot of them yet, but you know, real early adopters like that was one great success story, and he's very into it. He's got a whole agenda ahead of him now.
The other big thing on our roadmap as far as driving the culture change is utilizing the business schemas a lot more. We really just have the technical schema, and then we've developed the insights from there. And our long-term goal is to really build out that business schema so that can really drive the user adoption to be more self-service. And we've got some people in our organization that really want to do the self-service angle of that, and that will certainly help with that.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if I haven't done enough there.
Presentation layer, right?
Yeah, I wonder if I haven't done enough there to make it easy for people to get to the data. So maybe those business schemas are the thing.
Yeah, and certainly a fine balance there. I think those are great topics to touch on. I am curious, you know, if you had to give advice to someone, regardless of their role in an organization, but realistically, I mean, analytics can play, a part in any function in the business. I mean, when you start to see someone start to lean in a little bit and want to get more exposure, what advice would you have to someone in an organization to try to get involved, you know, with the formal analytics teams or the IT department, if that's where it's owned at, just to try to get engaged and kind of further their development?
Information's power. So if you've got somebody leaning into it and you can enable that, they're going to succeed and they're going to help you succeed. So you embrace it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it for sure. Any other thoughts on that?
I think initially you could probably just start with what are the things today that are the most difficult for you to accomplish, right? And once you isolate that out, if you can then distill it down to what information would you need that you don't have access to that would be beneficial to helping you understand the things that are being difficult, I think that's a great place to start. And then that gets you kind of a project listing that you can now start to socialize and create some momentum behind for what the potential solutions could be.
Yeah, I think that finding a willing partner and a willing partner with real important problems to solve, and then getting the support from your executive team to focus on that domain until you create something meaningful. I think having something that you can point to that is deeply successful and building an early advocate, I think that's what it takes. That's not special about analytics. Like almost any kind of long-term technology-focused project, I would give that advice.
Absolutely. Well, I know we are a little bit over right now, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility here with schedules. I think it's a really engaging discussion. I will look at it if there's any Q&A here quick and just make sure we can get some of these questions answered, and then we can kind of go into the lunch block here. So let me just look here. So looking like I'm getting some pushback. We might want to try to keep the agenda going. So what I'll do is I'll actually share some of the questions that we get from the group here, just to be respectful of time, and we'll get those out kind of post-conference here, if you will. But I guess at this point in time, any any remarks you want to leave with the group here, any questions you have for the other panelists here today, would love to give you an opportunity to leave any closing remarks or questions real quick, guys.
I can just say something real quick. I think notionally, the theories that we've been talking about in the area of finance for the last 5 years around analytics and technology and the access to information are the technology is finally starting to catch up in that space, right? It's the things that we had talked and theorized about, getting to SKU level performance as an example on a daily basis, but the systems historically just couldn't handle that kind of volume of information. That momentum from a technology perspective is starting to change. And I think that the degree that you don't start thinking about what does that look like in your roadmap, it could put you at a competitive disadvantage to your peer groups.
That's a really good message to leave us with there, Adam. Well, again, really appreciate everyone's time here. I think with that, we're officially going to hit the lunch block here. So again, thank you for your guys' time here today. Really appreciate it. And we will reconvene here at 12:15, where we'll go into our first kind of demo session here this afternoon. So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye. So like I mentioned, we're going to just take another quick break here for lunch, and we will talk to everybody again here right around 12:15.